The old cup was already full, tea trembling at the rim, a thin spiral of steam rising into the quiet room. The visitor sat across from the master, his back straight, his mind restless. He had traveled far, crossing cities and seasons, carrying questions that weighed heavier than his luggage. He believed answers were prizes earned through effort, through argument, through proving oneself right. He had rehearsed his thoughts carefully, afraid that if he missed even one, his journey would be wasted. The master listened as the visitor spoke, about success and failure, about injustice, about how the world refused to reward hard work the way it should. Words poured out in long, tangled sentences. Opinions followed opinions, each one sharper than the last. The visitor barely paused for breath. Convinced that wisdom was something you extracted by force, like water from dry land. Without interrupting, the master lifted the teapot and began to pour. The tea flowed gently at first, filling the cup to the brim. Then it kept coming. Liquid slipped over the edge, running down the sides, pooling on the table, dripping onto the floor. The sound of it was soft but unmistakable. The visitor stopped. Mid-sentence. "Master," he said, startled, "the cup is full. You're wasting the tea." The master did not stop pouring. His hand was steady, his expression calm. Tea continued to spill, as if the cup itself no longer mattered. Annoyance crept into the visitor's voice. "Please," he insisted, "can't you see there's no space left?" Only then did the master set the teapot down. He looked up, his eyes clear and unhurried. "You see the cup," he said, "but you don't see yourself." The visitor frowned. "I don't understand." "You came here to learn," the master continued, "but your mind is already overflowing. Every belief you carry, every judgment you protect, every fear you hide. Together they leave no room for anything new." He gestured toward the soaked table. "Just like this cup." The words lan, dead harder than the visitor expected. He wanted to defend himself, to explain that his ideas were earned through pain and experience. But something held him back. Perhaps it was the quiet in the room, or the way the master's voice carried no accusation. "I've worked hard for what I know," the visitor said more softly. "Should I just throw it away?" The master shook his head. "Emptiness is not destruction. It is openness." He picked up the cup, now empty again, and turned it upside down, letting the last drops fall. When a cup is empty, it can receive. When the mind is empty, it can see. The visitor looked away. Memories surfaced, moments when he had dismissed advice because it contradicted his views, times he had lost opportunities because pride refused to bend. He had mistaken certainty for strength, noise for clarity. "But if I let go," he asked, "what will remain?" The master smiled. "What is real?" Silence settled between them. Not an awkward silence, but a living one, filled with awareness. The visitor noticed the faint creak of wood, the distant call of a bird, the rhythm of his own breathing. These things had always been there, yet he had never truly heard them. "You are afraid of emptiness," the master said gently, as if reading his thoughts. "Most people are. They fill their minds with constant thinking because stillness feels like loss. But emptiness is not a void, it is space. And space is where growth begins." The visitor felt something loosen inside him, a lifetime of urgency, of needing to be right, to be ahead, to be understood. Suddenly it all felt exhausting. He realized how rarely he allowed himself to simply not know. The master refilled the cup, this time stopping before it reached the top. He slid it across the table. "Drink," he said. The visitor lifted the cup with both hands. The tea was warm, balanced, no longer spilling. As he drank, he understood the lesson without words. A full cup spills. A full mind misses what matters. Days after leaving the master's home, the visitor found himself walking before sunrise, when the world still belonged to shadows and breath. The road was familiar, yet everything felt subtly errant, as if a veil had been lifted. He had not been given instructions, no rules to follow, no promises of instant change. Instead, he carried a single understanding. To empty his mind was not an act of forgetting, but of allowing. At first, his thoughts returned as they always had, uninvited and loud. Regrets replayed themselves with precision. Conversations from years ago resurfaced, each one demanding a better response, a sharper defense. Plans for the future stacked themselves neatly, each insisting it was more important than the last. The old habit urged him to grab hold of these thoughts, to analyze them, shape them, control them. But he remembered the cup, so he let them pass. A thought would rise, linger briefly, and then dissolve, like mist warming under the sun. He did not chase it, nor did he push it away. He simply noticed it. In doing so, he discovered something unexpected. The space between thoughts was not empty in the way he had feared. It was calm, wide, alive. As the days unfolded, this practice followed him everywhere. In crowded streets, he listened more than he spoke. Instead of preparing replies while others talked, he stayed present. He noticed pauses, hesita, shians, emotions hidden beneath words. People seemed different, less like obstacles or competitors, more like reflections of his own uncertainty. Arguments that once felt necessary now felt optional. Silence, once uncomfortable, became a companion. Challenges did not disappear. Work remained demanding. Responsibilities waited patiently each morning. Yet his relationship with difficulty began to chan. When problems arose, his first reaction was no longer panic or resistance. He paused. In that pause, clarity emerged, not dramatic, not loud, but steady. Solutions appeared without force, as if they had been waiting for him to stop interfering one evening as he sat alone by a window, watching the sky darken. A realization settled in him. Most of his suffering had never come from events themselves, but from the constant commentary he added to them. Every mistake had been judged twice, once by life and again by his mind. By emptying his mind, he was not avoiding reality, he was finally meeting it without distortion. Fear, too, began to loosen its grip. He noticed that fear thrived on imagined futures, on stories of loss and failure that had not yet happened. When his mind was quiet, fear had nothing to feed on. Courage, he learned, was not the absence of fear, but the ability to act without being ruled by it. There were moments of relapse, days when the noise returned, when old patterns tried to reclaim their territory. But now he recognized them. He did not condemn himself for slipping back. Instead, he returned, again and again, to emptiness. Each return felt easier than the last, like finding a familiar path through a forest. Gradually, his actions began to change. He made decisions with less hesitation, not because he knew everything, but because he trusted the clarity that arose from stillness. He stopped chasing validation, realizing how heavy the need for approval had been. His work improved, not through relentless effort, but through focus unburdened by distraction. One morning, standing at the same road where his journey had quietly begun, he understood the final lesson the master had never spoken aloud. An empty mind does not mean a passive life. It means a life lived deliberately, without excess noise. It means responding instead of reacting, listening instead of assuming, seeing instead of projecting.